Admiral William Carter stood motionless before the large view screen, his weathered face illuminated by the fading light of the explosion. Where the diplomatic vessel Olive Branch had been moments ago, only debris now floated silently above Europa's icy surface. 47 civilian observers and 12 of Earth's finest diplomats had just been murdered in cold blood. No one in the command center spoke. The silence was heavy with shock and anger. "Play it again," Carter said finally, his voice tight. "I want to be certain." The communications officer nodded and restarted the recording. The peaceful exchange between Earth's diplomats and the Zaxian representatives played out once more. Everything had seemed cordial until Earth politely declined the aliens' offer to build protective outposts on the moon. The Zaxian ambassador's demeanor had changed instantly. "Your species requires guidance," the alien had stated flatly. "This is not a request. Your primitive development makes you a danger to yourselves and others." When Earth's lead diplomat had started to respond, the Zaxian ship fired without warning. The Olive Branch never had a chance. Carter turned to Vice Admiral Susan Miller. "They expected us to beg for mercy after this. That's how they've conquered hundreds of worlds. Create a crisis, then offer protection that turns into occupation." Miller nodded grimly. "Intelligence confirms it. The Zaxians have been using this tactic across 3 spiral arms for centuries. They call it guided integration. And how they think we'll fall in line," Carter said, walking to the war room's central table. The gathered military and government leaders of Earth watched him carefully. The emergency bunker beneath Geneva was designed to withstand any attack, but everyone knew Earth's defenses were outmatched. The Zaxian fleet in orbit numbered over 200 vessels, each more advanced than anything humanity had officially produced. "Sir," the communications officer called out. "The Zaxian Supreme Commander is requesting to speak with Earth's leadership. They're asking for our surrender terms." A murmur ran through the room. Several officials exchanged nervous glances. "Put them on," Carter ordered. The view screen shifted to show the face of Supreme Commander Gaxtho. The alien's gray, ridged skin and multiple yellow eyes were arranged in what humans had learned was an expression of smug confidence. "People of Earth," the alien began in a tone one might use with children. "The unfortunate incident with your diplomatic vessel was regrettable, but necessary. Your species has proven unwilling to accept reasonable guidance. I am authorized to accept your surrender and establish a transitional authority. Your compliance will minimize further loss of life." Carter studied the alien's face. The Zaxian didn't even try to hide his contempt. "You murdered our diplomats and civilians in cold blood," Carter stated flatly. Gaxitho blinked slowly. "A regrettable necessity. Now, about your surrender." "Let me be perfectly clear," Carter interrupted. "Humans don't parley with murderers. You have 24 hours to leave our system, or we will remove you ourselves." The Zaxian commander's expression shifted to what intelligence had identified as amusement. "You misunderstand your position, human. Our fleet outmatches your visible defenses 20-1. We have studied your military capabilities extensively. Your species cannot hope to resist." Carter allowed himself a small smile. "The key word there is visible, Commander. 24 hours, not a minute more." He signaled the communications officer to cut the transmission. The room erupted in voices. "Admiral, we can't possibly— they'll glass our major cities in response to— perhaps we should consider their terms until—" Carter raised his hand and the room fell silent. "Activate the sleeper protocol. All of it." Miller's eyes widened. "The full protocol, sir? That was meant as a last resort." "They murdered our people during peace talks," Carter said. "I'd say we've reached that point." He turned to the secure terminal and entered his authorization code. The screen prompted for voice confirmation. "Admiral William Carter, authorizing sleeper protocol activation. Authorization phrase, remember the Olive Branch." The screen flashed green, then displayed, "Sleeper protocol activated." Across the solar system, hidden installations began to power up. Within the asteroid belt, what appeared to be mining facilities suddenly shed their disguises, revealing weapon systems and engines. On Mars, massive hangar doors opened in what were supposedly scientific outposts. On the moons of Jupiter and Saturn, stealth generators powered down as vessels prepared for battle. In a small command module hidden within Callisto's ice, Lieutenant Commander Alan Parks felt his station rumble to life around him. Warning lights bathed the cramped quarters in red as his small crew rushed to their positions. Sleeper protocol activated, the automated message announced. All units prepare for combat operations. Well, looks like we're not pretending anymore, Parks told his crew as they began powering up systems that had remained dormant for years. Weapons check, communications check, let's make sure everything works before we join the party. His weapons officer, Samantha Kelly, ran her hands over her console. Plasma cannons online, kinetic drivers charging, missile tubes 1 through 12 ready for loading. Parks nodded. The Zaxians think they know what they're dealing with. They've studied our official military and believe we're just another primitive species they can bully into submission. They're about to learn otherwise, Kelly said grimly. Back in Geneva, Admiral Carter watched as status reports began flowing in from across the solar system. What had appeared to be a hopelessly outmatched human defense force was transforming before the Zaxians' very eyes. Earth had been preparing for this moment for decades. Ever since the mysterious signals from Proxima Centauri were decoded 15 years ago, revealing warnings about the true nature of the so-called Galactic Confederacy. Nancy Wong, director of the Mars Defense Initiative, appeared on a secure channel. Mars contingent ready, Admiral. All 12 stealth dreadnoughts powering up, defense platforms online. Similar reports came in from Europa, Ganymede, Titan, and dozens of asteroid bases. The Zaxians had indeed studied Earth's official military capabilities thoroughly. What they hadn't realized was how much humanity had hidden from watching eyes. Carter looked at the tactical display as it updated with the true extent of Earth's defenses. For the first time since the olive branch exploded, he felt the tension in his shoulders ease slightly. Now we see if our preparations were enough, he said, quietly. On the main view screen, the Zaxian fleet was already showing signs of confusion. Their formation shifted as they detected the sudden appearance of previously hidden human vessels and installations. They're scanning the new contacts, Miller reported. Their communications just spiked. They're calling for reinforcements. Carter nodded. Right on schedule. Activate the quantum jammers. Let's make sure they fight alone. The trap was set. Now it was time to show the galaxy why humans should never be underestimated. Supreme Commander Gax, though, stared at the tactical display in disbelief. Where there had been empty space minutes ago, hundreds of human vessels now appeared. The sensor readings made no sense. These ships contained technology that should be far beyond human capabilities. Impossible, he hissed to his second-in-command. Their development level was confirmed by 3 separate survey teams. These readings must be false. The readings are accurate, Commander, his science officer replied. The humans have hidden their true capabilities. Our intelligence was incomplete. Gax Tho's outer membrane flushed purple with rage. In 300 years of military service, he had overseen the integration of 17 species into the Galactic Confederacy. Never had he encountered such deception. Primitives were supposed to cower, not hide fleets of warships. Launch all fighters, he ordered. Begin the standard intimidation bombardment of their largest cities. Once they see their population centers targeted, they will surrender. Across the Zaxian fleet, launch bays opened. Thousands of fighter craft poured out, forming attack formations as they moved toward Earth. Behind them, larger vessels began charging their main weapons. Inside the Mars Defense Command, Director Nancy Wong watched the Zaxian deployment with calm efficiency. The aliens were following their standard playbook, exactly as the Proxima Centauri transmissions had warned. They're heading for the population centers, she informed Admiral Carter over the secure channel. Just as predicted. Engage defense. Grid Alpha, Carter replied. Let's show them our first surprise. Wong nodded to her operations team. Activate the shield network. Across Earth, what had appeared to be ordinary communications towers and weather monitoring stations suddenly emitted fields of shimmering energy. The fields expanded and merged, forming a protective barrier around the planet. When the first wave of Zaxian fighters fired their weapons, the energy blasts dissipated harmlessly against the shield. On the bridge of the EDS Vengeance, Lieutenant Commander Parks watched with satisfaction as the alien fighters pulled up in confusion. "Shield technology," he said to his crew. "Another thing we weren't supposed to have for at least a century according to their development charts." His tactical officer, Ryan Garcia, looked up from his station. "They're regrouping for another attack. Their larger ships are moving into position." Parks nodded. "Time for us to join the fight. All vessels in Battle Group Callisto form up on my mark." The Vengeance and 30 other stealth vessels decloaked and accelerated toward the Zaxian fleet's exposed flank. Each ship was small, no more than 100 meters long, but packed with weapons technology reverse-engineered from crashed Zaxian scouts found decades ago in the Atacama Desert. The first Zaxian cruiser didn't detect the human vessels until they opened fire. Concentrated beams of energy tore through its shields, followed by kinetic projectiles that ripped into the hull. "Target their engines and weapons first," Parks ordered, as his battle group tore into the alien formation. "Don't give them time to adapt." Across the solar system, similar scenes played out as humanity's hidden fleet engaged the invaders. The Zaxians had numbers and size advantage, but the human vessels were faster and more maneuverable. What's more, the human tactics were completely unpredictable to enemies used to fighting according to the standardized Galactic Confederacy combat protocols. In the Geneva Command Center, Admiral Carter watched the battle unfold. "Status report," he called out. "Shield network holding at 82% capacity," an officer replied. "Battle Group Mars has engaged the enemy's central formation. Battle Groups Callisto, Titan, and Ceres are attacking their flanks. We've destroyed 27 enemy vessels so far, with moderate damage to 12 of our own." Vice Admiral Miller approached with a tablet. "The Zaxians are trying to call for reinforcements, but our quantum jammers are blocking all their communications. They're isolated." Carter nodded with grim satisfaction. The quantum jamming technology was perhaps their greatest achievement, a complete departure from standard Confederacy communication systems. The Proxima Centauri transmissions had been clear. Innovation was the key to survival against the technologically stagnant but numerically superior Confederacy. "Sir," a communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the Zaxian flagship." On screen, Carter ordered, Commander Gaxthow's face appeared, his features contorted, with what intelligence identified as a mixture of rage and confusion. "What trickery is this?" the alien demanded. "You have violated Confederacy law by concealing advanced technology. Your deception will be reported to the Galactic Council." Carter almost laughed at the absurdity. "You murdered our diplomats and we're preparing to bomb our cities, and you're accusing us of breaking rules. Humanity never agreed to your Confederacy laws. All species must follow the development guidelines," Gaxthow insisted. "It maintains galactic order. It maintains your control," Carter replied coldly. "We received the Proxima Centauri warnings 15 years ago. We know what happened to them when they refused your protection. We've been preparing ever since." The Zaxian commander's outer membrane paled. The Proxima species was deemed a threat to galactic stability. Their elimination was sanctioned by the Council. "And that's exactly why we kept our true capabilities hidden," Carter said. "Now, I'll repeat my original terms. Leave our system in the next 22 hours, or we will destroy every ship in your fleet." In the silence that followed, the view screen showed another Zaxian cruiser exploding under concentrated fire from human vessels. "Perhaps," Gaxthow said slowly, "we can discuss more favorable terms for both our peoples. The Confederacy can be generous. Humans don't parley with murderers." Carter cut him off. 22 hours. The transmission ended. Captain Kim Davis of the stealth dreadnought Silent Justice pushed her ship hard, diving beneath a massive Zaxian battleship. Her vessel was taking heavy fire, but its advanced armor was holding. "Pattern Delta maneuver," she ordered her crew. "Target their main power conduits." Her weapons officer, Jack Nelson, locked on to the vulnerable sections they had identified in previous engagements. "Firing solution ready." Fire. The Silent Justice's main weapons discharged, sending precisely calculated energy beams into the enemy vessel's weakest points. The Zaxian battleship shuddered as secondary explosions rippled along its hull. "They expected us to fight like everyone else in the Confederacy," Davis said as they pulled away from the crippled enemy ship. "They expected us to follow their rules of engagement." Nelson nodded as he prepared the next targeting solution. "They forgot something important about humans." "What's that?" Davis asked. "We're really good at fighting," Nelson replied. "And we absolutely hate being told what to do." 18 hours into the battle, the Zaxian fleet was in disarray. Nearly a third of their vessels had been destroyed or disabled. The rest had formed a defensive sphere near Neptune's orbit, frantically trying to repair their ships while fending off hit-and-run attacks from the human vessels. In the command center beneath Geneva, Admiral Carter studied the tactical display with Vice Admiral Miller. "They're regrouping," Miller observed, "getting ready to make a run for it." Carter nodded. "They'll try to reach the jump point beyond Pluto. If they can open a wormhole, they'll bring reinforcements." "The jammers are working," Miller said. "They can't call for help, but if they can reach the jump point—" "They won't," Carter replied firmly. "Deploy Phase 2. Throughout the solar system, a new set of commands went out to Earth's hidden forces. The battle was about to change. On the bridge of the Silent Justice, Captain Kim Davis received the new orders. "Phase 2 authorized," she informed her crew. "Prepare to execute." Her second-in-command, Frank Rivera, looked up from his station. "Are we really going to let them retreat, after what they did?" Davis shook her head. "We're not letting them retreat. We're letting them think they can retreat." She turned to her communications officer. "Order all vessels in Battle Group Jupiter to pull back. Make it look like we're regrouping." As the human ships near Neptune appeared to withdraw, the Zaxians seized their opportunity. Their remaining vessels formed into a tight formation and accelerated toward the outer edge of the solar system. Supreme Commander Gax Tho watched the human fleet's movements with suspicion. The battle had gone disastrously wrong from the start. These humans fought unlike any species he had encountered in his long career. They didn't follow proper military doctrine. They adapted too quickly. They used tactics that no civilized species would consider. "Status of the jump drive," he demanded. "Charging, Commander," his engineering officer replied. "We need to reach the designated coordinates beyond the dwarf planet they call Pluto. The gravitational conditions there will allow us to create a stable wormhole." Gaxtho's membrane darkened with determination. Once they reached the Confederacy, they would return with a fleet 10 times this size. These humans would pay for their resistance. "Maximum acceleration," he ordered. "All power to engines and forward. Shields." The Zaxian formation surged forward, passing the orbit of Neptune. For the first time since the battle began, Gaxatho felt a glimmer of hope. The humans appeared to be letting them go. Deep within the icy surface of Pluto's moon Charon, Lieutenant Paul Rodriguez activated the systems of the most secret installation in the solar system. 30 years ago, when the first fragmented warnings had reached Earth from Proxima Centauri, humanity had begun preparing. The Charon base was the culmination of those preparations. "Gravitational disruptors online," Rodriguez reported to Admiral Carter via secure channel. "Ready on your command." "Wait until they're committed to the jump," Carter instructed. "We need to be sure we get all of them." Rodriguez watched his sensors as the Zaxian fleet approached. The aliens were following the exact course predicted by Earth scientists. The natural gravitational characteristics that made this region suitable for opening a wormhole had been thoroughly studied and quietly modified. As the Zaxian fleet reached the jump point, their ships began the complex process of creating a wormhole. Energy surged between their vessels, distorting space-time in precisely calculated patterns. "They're initiating the jump sequence," Rodriguez reported. "Energy levels rising." "Execute," Carter ordered. Rodriguez activated the gravitational disruptors, hidden throughout the region. The carefully balanced gravitational field the Zaxians were using to form their wormhole suddenly twisted in unpredictable ways. On the Zaxian flagship, alarms blared as instruments showed impossible readings. "Something's wrong," the science officer shouted. "The gravitational field is collapsing," Abort the jump, Gaxtho ordered. Shut down all. The partially formed wormhole collapsed in on itself. The resulting gravitational shockwave tore through the Zaxian formation. Ships were crushed or torn apart as space itself seemed to twist around them. The human vessels, safely positioned outside the affected area, watched as the Zaxian fleet was decimated by forces they themselves had tried to control. When the distortion subsided, only a dozen Zaxian ships remained intact, including their flagship. They drifted aimlessly, their systems overloaded by the catastrophic energy release. In the Geneva Command Center, a cheer went up as the tactical display showed the results of the trap. Carter didn't join in. There was no joy in his expression, only grim resolution. "Open a channel to the Zaxian flagship," he ordered. Commander Gaxitho's face appeared on the screen. The alien looked stunned, his outer membrane pale and lifeless. You manipulated the gravitational fields," he said, his voice weak. That's not possible for your development level." "You keep underestimating us," Carter replied evenly. "That's a mistake many have made throughout human history, usually only once." Gaxtho seemed to collect himself. "What happens now, Admiral? Do you destroy us completely? That would violate Confederacy law. We told you from the beginning. Humans don't parley with murderers," Carter said. "But we're not like you. We don't destroy those who can no longer threaten us." He nodded to his communications officer, who transmitted a new set of coordinates to the Zaxian vessels. "Your remaining ships will proceed to Mars orbit," Carter continued. "There, you will surrender your weapons and technology. Your crews will be held until arrangements can be made for their return to Confederacy space." "And then?" Gaxitho asked. "And then you will deliver a message from humanity to your Galactic Confederacy," Carter said. "The message is simple. Earth is not to be approached without explicit invitation. Any vessel entering our solar system without permission will be considered hostile and destroyed. Any species that threatens humanity will face extinction." The Zaxian commander stared at the human admiral. "The Confederacy controls thousands of worlds across 3 spiral arms, Admiral. You cannot hope to stand against such power." Carter's expression didn't change. "We don't want to stand against anyone. We want to be left alone. But make no mistake, Commander, if forced to fight, we will. And we will win." As the transmission ended, Lieutenant Commander Parks turned to his crew on the Vengeance. "That," he said with a slight smile, "is why you don't murder human diplomats." 3 days after the battle, the surviving Zaxian vessels orbited Mars under heavy guard. Human ships surrounded them, weapons ready. On the Martian surface, a temporary facility had been constructed to house the alien prisoners. Admiral Carter stood on the observation deck of the space station Vigilance, watching as shuttles carried Zaxian crew members to the surface. Next to him, Vice Admiral Miller reviewed reports on her tablet. "The technology we've recovered from their ships is remarkable," Miller said. "Their weapons are only slightly better than what we developed ourselves, but their faster-than-light drives are centuries ahead of our prototypes." Carter nodded. "And yet they've apparently been using the same designs for thousands of years. No innovation, no improvements." "The Proxima Centauri transmissions mentioned this," Miller replied. "They said the Confederacy enforces technological stagnation. New developments are forbidden unless approved by the central authority." "That explains a lot," Carter said. "They weren't prepared for us because they couldn't imagine anyone thinking differently than they do." The door to the observation deck slid open. Director Nancy Wong entered, accompanied by several scientists and a military escort bringing Commander Gaxtho. The Zaxian's appearance had changed dramatically since the battle. His outer membrane had lost its vibrant color, and his movements were slow and uncertain. Carter had been briefed that this indicated deep psychological distress in the Zaxian species. "Commander?" Carter greeted him with a simple nod. "I trust you're being treated well?" Gaxitho made a gesture that human xenologists had identified as acknowledgement. "Your hospitality is adequate, Admiral, though I still don't understand why you haven't executed me and my crew." "As I said before, we're not like you," Carter replied. So I am beginning to understand, the alien said. He moved to the window and stared out at Mars and the fleet of ships. In all my years of service to the Confederacy, I have never encountered a species like yours. In what way? Carter asked. You hide your true capabilities. You develop technologies in secret. You employ tactics that no civilized species would consider. Gaxtho turned back to face the humans. The Confederacy believes that controlled, supervised development ensures peace. It ensures control, Wong interjected. The strong controlling the weak. A necessary hierarchy, Gaxtho insisted. But his voice lacked conviction. Without it, chaos would reign. Carter studied the alien commander. You're beginning to have doubts. Gaxtho was silent for a long moment. The battle did not proceed as any of our simulations predicted. In 3,000 years of Confederacy history, no primitive species has ever defeated a standard integration force. We're full of surprises, Carter said. Indeed. The alien turned back to the window. And now you wish me to deliver your message to the Confederacy. That's right. They won't accept it, Gaxtho said. They will return with a force so large your entire system will be overwhelmed. Miller stepped forward. By the time they get here, we'll be ready for them. The alien made a sound that the translators couldn't interpret. You don't understand. The Confederacy has been expanding for millennia. They have millions of ships, billions of soldiers. And they all fight the same way, Carter replied. They all think the same way. That's their weakness. Gaxtho seemed about to respond when alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. Red warning lights flashed. What's happening? Carter demanded, turning to his staff. A communications officer rushed onto the observation deck. Sir, we've detected a spatial anomaly at the edge of the system. It's a wormhole. A big one. Carter looked at Gaxtho. You said you couldn't call for help. I didn't, the alien replied, seeming genuinely surprised. But our failure to report would eventually be noticed. Standard protocol dictates an investigation force be sent. The officer's tablet beeped with an update. Sir, multiple vessels emerging from the wormhole. Configuration doesn't match Zaxian designs. Director Wong moved to a nearby console and studied the incoming data. They're Voric ships, she said, looking up with concern. Another Confederacy species. The Voric are enforcers, Gaxtho explained. When a standard integration fails, they are sent to investigate. They are more thorough than my people. Carter's expression hardened. How many ships? Sensors show 50 vessels, the officer reported. Largest is approximately 10 kilometers. In length, Miller whispered. That's 10 times the size of our largest vessel. They will not negotiate, Gaxtho warned. The Voric do not integrate. They eliminate threats to Confederacy stability. Carter was silent for a moment, weighing options. Then he turned to his staff. Implement Defense Protocol Omega. All ships to battle stations. Activate the shield network. As the officers rushed to carry out his orders, Carter faced Gaxtho again. You said the Confederacy uses the same tactics for thousands of years. What about the Voric? How do they attack? The alien hesitated, then seemed to come to a decision. They will send smaller vessels ahead to probe your defenses. Their main ships will remain at a distance analyzing the data. Once they understand your capabilities, they will adapt their approach. Standard procedure? Miller asked. Yes, Gaxtho confirmed. It has been effective for millennia. Carter exchanged glances with Wong. Then we changed the game again. Turned to his communications officer. Get me Captain Davis on the Silent Justice. Kim Davis appeared on the screen moments later. Admiral. Captain, we have new players in the game. I'm sending you the coordinates and all the intel we have. I want you to take Battle Group Mars and execute Operation Sunburst. Davis nodded, understanding immediately. Yes, sir. We'll be ready in 30 minutes. As the call ended, Carter turned to Miller. Prepare the diplomatic package, include all footage of the Zaxian attack on the Olive Branch. Miller looked surprised. Sir, we're going to try diplomacy with them? Not exactly, Carter replied. but I want them to understand exactly why we're about to destroy their fleet. In the cold darkness at the edge of the solar system, the Vorik, command ship Eternal Justice, hovered near the open wormhole. Fleet Commander Drav watched the sensor readings with his 4 eyes, each independently focusing on different data streams. The Zaxian integration force has been defeated, he observed. To his subordinates, most unusual, prepare scout vessels for immediate deployment. As he issued the order, Drav felt a slight twinge of curiosity. In his 3 centuries of service, he had overseen dozens of post-integration cleanups, but never had a primitive species managed to defeat a standard Confederacy force. These humans might prove interesting before they were eliminated. The Vorik scout vessels moved cautiously into the solar system. True to Gaxtho's prediction, they advanced in a standard formation, sensors actively scanning for human defenses. Behind them, the main Vorik fleet waited at the edge of the system, gathering data. In the Geneva Command Center, Admiral Carter watched their approach on the tactical display. They're following the exact pattern Commander Gaxtho described, Miller observed. Carter nodded. Predictable, that's their weakness. He turned to the communications officer. Status of Operation Sunburst? Captain Davis reports all vessels in position, sir. Ready on your command. Carter looked at Gaxtho, who stood silently watching the proceedings. Last chance, Commander. You could warn your Confederacy friends about what they're walking into. The Zaxians' outer membrane rippled slightly. They would not listen. The Vorik believe themselves invincible. 3,000 years of successful operations have made them overconfident. Sounds familiar, Miller said quietly. Carter took a deep breath. Begin transmission of the diplomatic package to the Vorik fleet, then execute Operation Sunburst. Throughout the solar system, human ships that had been visibly positioned for defense suddenly vanished from sensors as advanced stealth systems activated. At the same time, the transmission from Earth reached the Vorik fleet. A complete record of the Zaxian attack on the Olive Branch, followed by humanity's formal warning. On the bridge of the Eternal Justice, Fleet Commander Drav reviewed the human transmission with mild interest. A primitive attempt at communication, he noted to his second-in-command. They document the Zaxian integration protocol as if it were unexpected. All species resist at first. His communications officer interrupted. Commander, we've lost contact with the scout vessels. Drav turned all 4 eyes toward the tactical display. Impossible, check the communication systems. All systems functioning normally, the officer replied. The scouts simply disappeared. Behind Neptune's orbit, Captain Kim Davis watched as her battlegroup's stealth fighters completed their attack on the Vorik scout vessels. Like the Zaxians before them, the Vorik had been unprepared for humanity's unconventional tactics. All targets neutralized, her weapons officer reported. No distress signals were transmitted. Davis nodded. Prepare for Phase 2. The main fleet will respond now. In the darkness of space, the Vorik command ship surged forward, accompanied by its escort vessels. Their sensors detected nothing unusual, but the complete loss of the scout. Ships demanded investigation. No signs of combat, Drav's science officer reported. No debris, no energy signatures. They must have some form of stealth technology, Drav concluded. Interesting but irrelevant. Deploy the main battle group, standard elimination pattern. The Vorik fleet spread out into an attack formation, weapons charging as they moved deeper into the solar system. Their sensors swept ahead, seeking any sign of the human defenses. They found nothing until they reached Uranus. As the Vorik fleet passed the ice giant's orbit, dozens of small objects suddenly detached from the planet's rings. For centuries they had been disguised as ordinary ice fragments, indistinguishable from the billions of other particles. Now they activated, small engines pushing them toward the passing Vorik ships. Each device was simple, little more than a fusion bomb with a propulsion system, but there were thousands of them. On the Eternal Justice, alarms blared as sensors finally detected the approaching threats. Primitive nuclear devices, the tactical officer reported dismissively. Our shields will easily. The first wave of devices detonated, not against the Vorik shields as expected, but at precisely calculated distances around each ship. The explosions themselves did no damage, but they created overlapping electromagnetic pulses that interfered with the Vorik shield generators. In the critical seconds while the shields fluctuated, the second wave struck. These contained not nuclear explosives, but a specialized nanomaterial that human scientists had developed after studying the fragments of Zaxian technology recovered from the Atacama Desert. The material spread across the Vorik ship's hulls, its atomic structure resonating at frequencies that disrupted their power systems. Systems failed, weapons went offline, engines sputtered and died. Fleet Commander Drav watched in disbelief as his mighty warships drifted helplessly. "This is unprecedented," he said, his voice tight with shock. "No primitive species has ever—" The view screen activated, showing Admiral Carter's face. "Fleet Commander Drav," Carter said, "your vessels are disabled but intact. Your crews are unharmed. This is a demonstration, not an extermination." Drav stared at the human. "How do you know my name? Our communications were encrypted." "We have sources within your confederacy," Carter replied. "Not all species are content with your guidance." The Vorik commander's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "What do you want, human?" "The same thing we told the Zaxians. Leave our system and never return. Tell your confederacy that Earth is off limits." "The confederacy does not recognize independent worlds," Drav stated automatically. "All sentient species must be integrated for galactic stability." Carter's expression hardened. "Let me be clear. We have disabled your fleet as a courtesy. We could have destroyed it. The only reason your crews are still alive is because humans, unlike the Confederacy, don't murder those who pose no threat." He leaned closer to the camera. "But make no mistake, if your Confederacy sends another fleet, we will not be so merciful. Humans don't parley with murderers. We eliminate threats." Drav was silent for a long moment. "You cannot stand against the entire Confederacy." "We just defeated 2 of your fleets without losing a single ship," Carter pointed out. "How many more is the Confederacy willing to sacrifice before they decide Earth isn't worth the cost?" The transmission ended, leaving Drav staring at a blank screen. 1 month later, Admiral Carter stood in the United Earth Council chamber as representatives from every nation reviewed the final report on the Vorik encounter. Both alien fleets had been allowed to depart after surrendering significant portions of their technology. "The Confederacy has established a quarantine zone around our entire solar system," Carter informed the Council. "Our long-range probes confirm no alien vessels have approached within 5 light years." President Laura Wilson of the North American Union nodded. "And what of Commander Gaxtho's warning? Will they return with a larger force?" Carter exchanged glances with Director Wong before answering. "Intelligence suggests the Confederacy is preoccupied. It seems our broadcast of the Zaxian attack on the Olive Branch was received by more than just the Vorik." Wong stepped forward. 17 subjugated worlds have declared independence in the past month. The Confederacy's policy of integration has been exposed, and their military resources are stretched thin dealing with multiple rebellions." Carter allowed himself a small smile. "It seems we've unintentionally sparked a revolution." President Wilson looked troubled. "And if they eventually suppress these rebellions and turn their attention back to us? Then we'll be ready," Carter replied, simply. "The Proxima Centauri transmissions gave us a 15-year head start. We've proven we can match Confederacy technology. More importantly, we've proven we can think in ways they can't predict." He looked around at the assembled leaders. "The message has been delivered and understood throughout the galaxy. Humans, don't parley with murderers, and those who threaten us do so at their own peril.